Hello everyone. I'm gonna wait a little bit until we get some people on here. I'm so excited to chat with you guys today. If you have any questions throughout this entire chat, presentation, interview, Instagram, oh just kidding, we're not on Instagram, we're on Facebook Live, feel free to put any questions down at the bottom, but I see there's 3 of you guys here already. Thanks, Nutritional Therapy Association. Okay, well we've got a few people here, and as long as you guys can hear me okay, I'm gonna get started on everything. Let's see here. Well, my name is Caitlin Crowell. Some of you guys might know me as What Kate Ate. That's my Instagram name and my blog name. And I graduated the NTP program in June of 2016. So I'm going on a little over 2 years since I started my business. I actually started my business in December of 2017, so I waited a little bit before I actually started. I moved out to Colorado shortly after I finished the NTP program. My husband and I knew that we wanted to move out here, so I was actually living in Arlington, Virginia with Stu, who's my husband, before while I was going through the NTP program, and I ended up we knew that we were going to move out to Colorado, so I chose the NTP program in Denver so that I could build just a network out here before we moved out here, because I didn't know anyone. I had no idea how I was going to start my business, and I was like, well, I guess the best place to start is to actually pick my NTP program in the city that I'm planning on moving to and just try to meet some people there. So that's where I started. But before I get too much into where I'm at now, why I chose the NTP program, that kind of thing, I want to share a little bit about my story. I feel like we all have these stories as to why we're interested in becoming nutritional therapy practitioners, what motivates us to do what we do, and why we're interested in the program in general. Some of you might be watching this and aren't NTPs yet, and you're just interested in hearing my journey of why I became an NTP. So let's chat about that. I've got some notes here to the left, so if you see me looking to the left, that's what I'm looking at, making sure that I'm telling you guys the full story. So I grew up, we'll start back growing up, but I grew up as a competitive gymnast. I was obsessed with gymnastics. I ate like total crap. I had a standard American diet, lots of junk food, and I was definitely overtraining but didn't know it. Those are the things that you learn as an NTP. You can look back at your story and be like, oh, this all makes sense. But going through all of this, none of this really made sense to me. So I was tired all the time. I slept after school almost every single day before gymnastics practice. And when I was about 12, 13 years old, I had a panic attack for the first time and had no idea what was happening to me, why it was happening. I just felt like I needed to get out of my body. I was terrified. And from that moment forward, I was pretty terrified of competing in gymnastics. So I ended up backing off gymnastics, ended up pole vaulting. And later on, I think just through having all of this anxiety, dealing with panic attacks and things like that, I ended up having all of these crazy digestive issues. I ended up being the person in the friend group who was always talking about poop, always talking about needing to go to the bathroom, worried about, all of my friends are going out here. I'm worried if I eat here, I might have to run to the bathroom. So I'd avoid public situations where I had to eat with people. I know some of you guys might be experiencing that. I know I have clients now that deal with that same thing, and I'm grateful to say that I don't really deal with that anymore, but that was a huge part of my story. So for me, the big things that I dealt with were digestive issues and anxiety and panic attacks. And anytime my health gets compromised, even now, this seems to be where my body resorts back to, as I end up dealing with anxiety, panic attacks, and digestive issues all over again when I'm not managing my own health. And it's kind of funny how we have these cycles with our health, but so in terms of my journey of how I got interested in nutritional therapy and how I got interested in holistic health to begin with, I kind of hit a wall in college with my digestion and panic attacks, and I was like, that's it, I'm sick of this, my digestion is ruling my life, it's not fun, I'm worried about my stomach all the time. I was competing as a D1 track athlete, I pole vaulted all through college, so that got in the way, digestion getting in the way of track practices, running to the porta potties all the time. And I was like, okay, this is it. I need to figure this out. And I ended up going to a gastroenterologist because I didn't know anything about holistic health. And I got a upper GI endoscopy and colonoscopy and found out that I had IBS and found out that I was diagnosed with gastritis, and I had some polyps in my stomach and in my esophagus. and they were benign, nothing was wrong with them. But I remember being so pissed off at that appointment because the doctors were like, you're just anxious, you just need to relax, your IBS, your bowel's just irritable. And I was like, well, that's some BS, because that's not even an answer in and of itself. Like, why is my bowel irritable? Why is it inflamed? Why do I have gastritis? And they didn't have any answers for me other than giving me a antacid to cool down the acid in my stomach, because most conventional doctors will say that stomach acid, in too much stomach acid, is what causes that burning and the irritation and inflammation of the gut. But as NTPs, we know that is not true. So looking back at that, super frustrating. Some people are saying hi. Hello, Noelle. And I see Catherine is here in Cameo. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining. But to continue on with my story, I hit a wall with conventional medicine. I took antacids for 3 months, and I was like, okay, I'm really going to figure out what's going on now. And I'm just very much a why person. Why is this happening? Why do I have irritation and inflammation? And I really wanted to just know why, and I wasn't getting those answers. And so I went to my chiropractor's wife, who was a nutritional therapy practitioner, which at the time I had no idea what that was. I was like, this chick does nutrition and she's gonna help me. And so I went to her, and she suggested that I go on an ancestral style diet, get rid of inflammatory foods, nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, processed sugars, dairy, all of the, common inflammatory foods that we're well aware of now as NTPs that affect a lot of people. And then I had some lifestyle changes that she suggested I implement, like doing some meditation, relaxing, taking naps as needed. I definitely had some adrenal issues as well looped in there. And then there were some whole food supplements that she put me on. And within 3 months, I had this massive 180 of my health. My digestion was finally trustworthy again. I felt like I got my life back. And from there moving forward, it's like a whole other story of just figuring out what has worked best for me since then. That was probably about, close to 10 years ago now. But we don't need to get into the nitty-gritty of this, the next 10 years of my story, because I could talk about this forever. I think all of us could talk about our stories for a long time, but that's kind of what brought me to holistic health and the power of holistic health. And at the same time, I was a sophomore in college, actually, I think at this point, and I was studying global public health, and I loved global public health. For those of you that don't know what that is, it focuses on the populations of people in developing countries. So public health, but on a global scale. So I loved my classes in person, and I was like, well, if I'm loving these classes in person, I need to go into the field and I need to see what this is all about. Because I felt like a poser. I was like, oh, I'm just comfortable sitting in my, in my developed country, sitting here in college learning about all these horrible things, but what do I think about this field of study when I'm actually doing it? So I don't know what came over me this year in college, but I just felt like I had to go internationally by myself. So outside of my university, outside of study abroad, outside of everything, I went by myself to Bangladesh, which is crazy to think about now, but it was probably the most amazing thing I've ever done in my life. And I worked at an international research hospital for the summer, and I worked specifically in the nutrition rehabilitation unit with women and children. And I got to see nutrition function on an acute level versus a chronic level, which we usually see here in the US with all of the chronic diseases that we see in developed countries. I got to see, this other side of nutrition in developing countries, which was really amazing. So seeing that and having my own experiences of just having this big 180 and the power of holistic approaches to nutrition and holistic approaches to health, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do nutrition when I'm done with college. This is my passion. This is what I'm excited about. So I was also studying in college. I minored in nutrition, and I had a lot of, and this kind of gets into, I'm kind of getting into why I chose the NTP program, but I had a lot of professors that were RDs and had worked clinically. And after having my own experience and after being in Bangladesh and seeing nutrition function on these micro and macro scales, and then sitting in these classrooms at a public university, hearing these licensed RDs and nutritionists just perpetuate BS nutrition information, I was like, oh gosh, well, I thought I wanted to be an RD because that's usually the main path that we see in nutrition. And after listening to my professors who were RDs who had been in the field for years, I was like, that's not the kind of nutrition I want to do. I want to do what my chiropractor's wife was doing and I really want to get to the root cause of things. And so from that point forward, the next 2 years of college, my junior and senior year, I spent so much time looking at tons of different nutrition programs. I was listening to the Balance Bite podcast a lot with Diane Sanfilippo and Liz Wolfe. And as most of us know, Liz Wolfe is an NTP, and so I found out about the program from her mostly, and it just ended up being something that I just was looking into a lot. And I also looked at like the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, Bowman College. I even looked at naturopathic medicine school, chiropractic, acupuncture. Like, I looked at everything. Drove my husband completely crazy trying to figure out what program I wanted. He probably got sick of me asking him questions, but I just kept coming back to the NTP program. And I finally was like, okay, I need to get out of my own head and just pick something and just do something. And I just felt in my heart that the NTA was what I wanted to do. It addressed nutrition holistically. It focused it on this foundational aspect of our health and balancing body systems naturally with properly prepared nutrient-dense whole foods. And we just had the mentality that the body has this ability to heal itself. And it does. And so that's why I chose the NTA, the NTP program specifically. I know there's NTP, NTC. I think they're both extremely valuable. So if you're watching this, trying to figure out which one you want, you can definitely reach out to the NTA. Look on their website. They've got plenty of information about the difference between those two. But I chose the NTP just because I wanted to learn the functional evaluation. I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could. And I'm so grateful that I did. And that was about 2 years ago now. So let's see. You guys are welcome to ask questions if you have. I'm going to scroll through here and see if there's anything. Aw, Brittany Johnson's here. Hi, Brittany. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Chelsea. Melissa. Rosa says, oh my God, listening to you is like listening to me. Yeah, we all have very similar stories. It's crazy. But I want to talk a little bit about my business now. This is what I get a lot of questions on. So at the moment, I get most of my clients. Hi, Jennifer. I get most of my clients off of Instagram, actually, which I feel like is very different than probably a lot of other nutritional therapy practitioners. I had no intention of having an online business, but I do, and it's kicking ass. I don't know if I can swear on here, so I'm sorry, NTA, but I can't believe how well my business is doing, and it really does completely shock me. I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I jumped in with both feet, but I had no idea that I was going to get swamped with clients as quickly as I did. So a little bit about my story and how I started my business. Like I said earlier, my husband and I were living in Arlington before we moved out here. I did the NTP program in Denver, so I was flying out to Denver for the program. And my husband and I at the time knew that we wanted to live out here, but we didn't have jobs. I was planning on starting my nutrition business when I got out here. So I was actually working as a waitress at a farm-to-table restaurant in Washington, D.C. called Founding Farmers. And I was hustling my butt off, making like $4,000 a month, waitressing, completely ran myself into the ground to save money so that we could live off of our savings when we first moved to Colorado. And when I got here, I didn't know what to do. So the only thing that I really had was a blog that I'd started in college that was totally haphazard, just a WordPress.com blog. Didn't even have my own domain of my own website name. That was one of the first things I did when I moved out here. And I had an Instagram page that I talked a lot about nutrition and food and health from college, but I got made fun of a lot from my friends in college. They would crack jokes like, oh, if you didn't take a picture of it, did you really eat it? And now my Instagram has turned into what it is today. So when we got here to Denver and I didn't really know what to do, I was like, well, my Instagram and my blog are kind of a thing. I get a lot of questions there. I'm starting to build this ability to connect with people on these platforms, so why don't I just tap into that a little bit more while I build my brand, figure out what I want to do. So I did that. I spent more time blogging. I was more intentional with the quality of the content that I was sharing, the consistency of the content that I was sharing. And over time, things just built. I got a ton of followers. I think the first year being here in Denver, I think I grew from like 1,000 to 10,000 followers. I'm sitting at a little over 22,000 now at this point, which is just crazy that many people even give a crap about what I have to say. It's just really amazing. And I think it's just the power of sharing the truth of nutrition and the truth of who you are. And that's just a lot of what my business has been built on. But that's where a lot of my clients come from, is from Instagram. So kind of my strategy of getting clients and how I set up my online business, I feel like people might be interested in this, is I'll talk about common things that I see clients struggling with on my Instagram stories. And I'll say, or I'll share some of my story like I just did with you guys and say, hey, I used to deal with IBS and dealing with all of these different issues. And I'll share the common things that I know people who are watching are dealing with. I'll speak to that. I'll spit some truths on that, things that you learn as an NTP about how digestion is supposed to work and how it actually works. And then I'll tell people, if you have any questions and if this sounds like you, send me a DM. And I'll get like 50 DMs after just one story. And I'll get people's emails and I'll send them an email saying it was so great to chat with you. I'd love to offer you a free 20-minute consult, and I'd love to learn more about what you're dealing with. I'd love to help you. And I use a software program that's called Practice Better. That's how I set up all of my online clients. There's online scheduling there. So I'll send them a link in that email to schedule their 20-minute consult. And it's great because it takes out that piece of you saying, oh, what time do you want to chat? Does this time work? No. Does this time work? No. And then you waste all of that time back and forth, when if you have online scheduling, it's just a quick system that's set in place that you don't have to deal with and waste your time on. So that's really been helpful for me. But once people sign up for that, then we start the whole process. I actually use pretty much the exact same client process that we learn in NTP. There's a few questions that I've added to intake forms, a few that I've taken away that just for me in my own practice, I've noticed that I don't really need. So most of my clients that I work with are people that are dealing with digestive issues and blood sugar dysregulation, adrenal dysfunction, and hormonal imbalances. And that's kind of where I've niched out. And I will say, if you're someone who doesn't really know what you want to niche into as an NTP, whether you're going into this and you're like, I just love nutrition, but I don't know what I want to do, or if you're someone who's coming out of the NTP program and you don't know what you want to do, that's totally fine. I think we get a lot of pressure to niche out immediately, right away, and you can't market yourself unless you niche out, and I would say that's a bunch of crap. I think if you go into this already knowing and being really passionate about a specific part of nutrition and health, then by all means go crazy on that. But I think it's really important to just, if you don't know what you want to do, give yourself a chance to figure out what that is. So for me, I had no idea what I wanted to work with people on. And over the course of, I would say like a year and a half, I started realizing that I just really loved working with people that had the same types of issues that I had with digestion, adrenal dysfunction, anxiety, panic attacks, that kind of thing. And that's really the only kinds of clients that I take now. That doesn't mean that I don't talk to other people, but I do have a referral network built now that if something, if I get a client that's not the kind of client that I want to work with, or it's a topic that's over my head, I will refer out to other NTPs or other people that I'm friends with. We've got some questions, so I'm going to take a moment to look through these. So Dahlia says, sorry, just jumped in. I'm struggling with NTA versus getting a master's in nutrition. So for me, I actually had the same exact thing, Dahlia. That's really funny. So I mentioned this a little bit a second ago, like at the beginning of this live, but I really hated my undergrad nutrition courses. I felt like they didn't give me the information that I really wanted to really help people. I feel like it was very surface level. It was very much focused on pyramid, my plate, that type of old nutrition dogma that we all know just doesn't really fuel our bodies that are created very intricately. And so I just looked at so many other different programs. And I think one thing that a lot of people struggle with, or at least I struggled with, was that no one knows what an NTP is. No one, knows what those letters mean, really. A lot of people know what RDs mean. A lot of people know what a master's means, but not a lot of people know what an NTP is. And for me, that was something that I struggled with. And then I just got to a point where I was like, I'm going to do this program because this is what I'm looking for. I know it's the education that I'm seeking, and I will be confident as hell when I'm done. And I can tell you, I am extremely confident in my knowledge and in my business and in my ability to help people, because I have seen, as you go through the NTP program, you gain this immense confidence in working with people. And as you start working with people, you realize how sick our country really is. And you don't need to, go on and do all these other amazing, crazy, nutrition programs after NTP. All I have is my NTP and my undergrad degree, and I've worked with over 200 clients in the last 2 years. So it's possible, you can do it. You don't need these super well recognized letters behind your name. As long as you're good at what you do, you're well educated, and you can help people. That's really what people want. They just want help. Moving on to some more questions. Sorry, I'm drinking water. It's really dry in Colorado. So next question was, do I work online, on the phone, or in person with people? So I actually work remotely online. I have clients all over the world. I have some clients from Australia right now. I had a client last year in Spain, and then a lot of clients in the US. And I usually just use Practice Better, that software program I was telling you guys about, to do video conference calls with my clients. It's already built into the software, which is really nice. And otherwise, I'll just do phone conversations. Even people that are in Colorado, in the state that I live in here in Denver, people want to work online with me just because it's easier for their schedule. So I haven't had an issue of not having a physical practice. I will say you do have to be very disciplined and set a schedule for yourself, because if you don't have guidelines and deadlines for yourself, it's really easy to just sit at home like I am right now with my dog and just not do anything. So you definitely have to be disciplined. Stacy, thank you for sharing my website and my blog. Lindsay says, any advice for finding clients if we don't have a strong Instagram following? That is a great question. So I've definitely gone in the direction of social media. That's what's worked for me. But there's a lot of people that are very invested in their communities, or they have kids that are going to elementary, middle, or high school, and they're, involved with other parents. Everyone has a community that they can reach out to, whether it's in person, online, wherever, and it's just a matter of tapping into that. So I would say if you don't have a strong Instagram following, you're not a tech kind of person, and you want to start this business, then go into your community. There's so many opportunities to do free workshops, paid workshops. I know there's tons of different NTPs that started out doing free workshops. Even if you get 5-10 people in the door, just get familiar with talking to those people, sharing the truths of nutrition that you learn through the NTP program. You're going to wow a lot of people, and you're going to have a lot of people that are going to be interested in what you're talking about, and a lot of people that are going to want to work with you. So get out in the community. I think one of the best things, even though I don't have a physical practice, one of the best ways that I've built my network is by every single week, I try to meet a new person, at least one new person. I go grab coffee with another influencer, an Instagram influencer in the area, or another acupuncturist or a chiropractor, and I get myself invested in the community that I'm in, even though my business is online. So having, one-on-one in-person relationships is super important in this business and just in life in general, but also online. So don't be afraid to reach out to people, and definitely put yourself out there. You're gonna be uncomfortable. It's good to be uncomfortable. Definitely suggest that. Mallory says, do you think you can build a successful practice without a large Instagram following starting off? Definitely. Kind of goes into the question that I just went through. What's the hardest part with working with online clients? So that's a really great question. I think for me, I'm very extroverted, so I definitely miss getting the energy of being physically with another person. But I get that, like I said, just being invested in my community, getting outside, meeting with people one-on-one. But in terms of working with clients online, I think what's hard is that all of the content that I send to my clients, my protocols, supplement protocols, lifestyle suggestions, anything that I'm sending to them, it takes extra time because I can't just write it down and hand it to them. Or I don't have like little pieces of paper sitting behind me in a file folder that's like, oh, this is related to blood sugar, so I want you to take this and read this. It's something that I have to dig through in my online folders, pull into an email, send to them. So I think for me, the worst part, there's not even like working with clients online isn't bad. I love it. There's a lot of flexibility. It's great. I can work wherever I want, whenever I want. I'm not tied to a specific area. But I think the worst part for me that I don't like is the extra time that it takes to send information to clients. How do you do the FE part of the NTP? That's a great question as well. So I actually don't do the functional evaluation, and I'm not 100% sure what the NTA will think of this. This is just my personal opinion. I don't represent the NTA. This is just how I've moved forward with my own business. But there's so many people that you can help just with food, and supplements aren't necessary. And the functional evaluation, should come later once people kind of have this foundation of supporting their bodies in a holistic way, which is a huge piece of the nutritional therapy program, is just figuring out how to support these foundational aspects of health. So since I'm working remotely, I don't have the ability to do the functional evaluation. So in terms of supplements, figuring out what supplements are going to work best, what I've done in the past is I've reached out to this group of nutritional therapy practitioners and said, hey, is there an NTP in XYZ state that can do a functional evaluation on my client on these specific supplements so that we can figure out what's going to work. And you guys will notice throughout this group, if you look back through discussions, there's a lot of NTPs that do that, that have clients remotely. There's also certain supplements that I feel like just kind of help everyone, like digestive enzymes. Most people don't have enough. Hydrochloric acid, that's another thing too. And it's just based on your own experience. And so for me, I try not to do a ton of supplements just because I can't do the functional evaluation, but there are some that I know are not going to hurt. They're only going to help. And with digestion and blood sugar regulation, there's definitely, as you become an experienced NTP, you start to see these synergies and these consistencies with certain supplements that are very helpful. So that's kind of my personal approach. Karen says, what's the average salary per month while doing an exclusive online practice? That, I think, varies from person to person. I know for me personally, just to be totally transparent, because I'm just an open book, so please send me any and every questions that you guys have. I would love to answer even the most in-depth personal questions that you might have about this whole process, because I think it's important to hear that. So financially speaking, I personally made $2,000 in my first month working with clients, and that blew my mind. I think as soon as I got a taste of that and started working with people and was like, whoa, I know a lot more than most people do about this stuff, and I can help so many people, and there were strangers that wanted to work with me, and I made $2,000. That was like probably the most ridiculous, empowering, amazing thing that happened. And from that point forward, I was like, I got this. I'm gonna take this and just run with it and try to be better and better and get more clients and help more people. And at this point, to be totally transparent, so I'm about, like I said, about 2 years into my practice. Last month I made a little over $8,000 for the month. So it's definitely livable. It's definitely possible. I think there's a lot of people that get into the NTP program. They think about their business, how they're going to carry this forward. And a lot of people get really freaked out about just starting a business. They're afraid about how much money they're going to make. They're afraid about supporting their families. They're afraid about, if they know enough and if they can help people and if they're going to fail or not. And I can tell you that's totally normal. I was terrified. I was super terrified. We moved across the country. I graduated college. We were living off savings. I didn't have a job. And if I can do that, you guys can totally start these businesses. It's just a matter of really leveraging your community, the people that you know, sharing your story, talking about it, and just learning as much as you can. So I have definitely used a lot of online videos, YouTube, things like that to teach myself how to do the things that I do. So I built my website by myself. I started my podcast by myself. I researched plenty of things and talked to tons of people about what was the best software to work with clients online. And you just start to work at these things and build them up for yourself. You're going to fail. It's just part of it. I can't tell you how many times I have failed. I think about my systems when I first started working with clients, and it was just a total mess. I think about that now and I'm like, oh my gosh, like my poor first handful of clients, like I had no idea what I was doing, and I still feel like I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm helping plenty of people. I'm making great money. I'm loving what I'm doing. I have a flexible schedule, and there's still so much room to learn through the NTP program. All right, I got a few more questions. Let's see here. I'm just reading some of your questions, guys. I'm sorry. It's always funny doing these lives because every time I read questions, I have to get my face super close. So sorry about that. Dahlia says, do clients usually see you for a certain number of visits, single visit or a package? How did you figure out pricing for your session? So for me personally, I never really liked the idea of having people commit to like 6 months or 3 months of working with me because I thought about myself in those situations. So for me personally, when I was going through my health issues, if somebody was like, hey, pay me $2,000 to work with me for 6 months, I would have been like, are you crazy? I know there's a lot of NTPs that take that route, but I just didn't feel confident in that, and that's what I would say is the key. If you feel confident in your pricing and in your packaging, that's what will work for you. And I didn't feel confident in that. So the biggest package that I offer clients is 1 month. I charge at this point $525 for the month. A lot of clients will roll over. And then I also offer a smaller package that's just a health assessment that I charge $295 for, and my follow-up appointments I charge people $115 an hour. That's where I'm at now, again, 2 years into my business. And when I first started, I think I only was charging like $250 a month. So this was the price that I felt comfortable with at that time. And as you get more confident, you work with more people, there's more demand for you, you raise those prices. And the way that I would suggest looking at your prices, how to set them up, is to look at other people in your area. Call up some functional medicine doctors, call up NTPs in your area, nutritionists, people that are comparable to you, and see where their prices are set. And then work off of that. Work off of where you feel comfortable per hour. That's kind of just what I did. And just, if I'm being honest, I've got such a high demand for clients right now that I'm about to bump my prices up again. It's probably going to be closer to $700 a month. But yeah, just do what's comfortable and what you feel confident about, and don't undersell yourself. This is something that you'll talk about through the NTP program as well. And if you haven't signed up for the business course that the NTA is offering, you should definitely do that. That's a new thing. I know that's something that I would have taken after NTP, but since my business is up and running and I've got systems that work, I haven't taken it yet, but it's definitely something that I'm interested in. My intern's actually taking that course right now, and really excited to pick her brain about it, and it might even be something that I end up doing in the future because I think it's so important to keep learning your craft. Phoebe says, was the podcast a huge boost to your business? So the podcast has not been a boost to my business yet. I will say podcasting takes a lot of time. I taught myself how to do the podcast, so I do everything myself. I use Zoom to interview people online that are far away. I have microphones in person for when I'm interviewing people in person, and I do everything on GarageBand, and I bought my own music. I do my own intros and outros, pull the music in, and it probably takes, 2-3 hours out of my week, and I'm trying to get one podcast out a week. So at this point, it's kind of like, I know over the course of time, since I already have a following on Instagram and social media, that will build up and I will get clients from that. But I've only had 5 episodes so far. It's been going for 5 weeks, and it's really hard to say if that has boosted my business. But when you're just starting out, I would think about, where can you add the most value? Is a podcast going to be where you can add most value to people? If not, then do something else. Start a blog, start workshops in your community, whatever it's going to be, that's going to be the big thing where you're adding the most value. That's what I would focus on. And as you start to build, you're going to start to diversify. That's a big thing that I would suggest is, I have multiple income streams. Most of my income does come from working with clients one-on-one remotely online, but I do have paid partnerships with different brands on Instagram. Since my Instagram has grown, I get paid for events, for public speaking engagements. I've thought about writing a book. I had an ebook that I put out last year that I made money off of. So you just continue to diversify these things and expand your business. And just a smart entrepreneurial aspect of having your own business is you don't ever want to have just one stream of income in one place where you're making all of your money, because if that falls through, then you have nothing. So it's really important, in my personal opinion, to diversify. Catherine says, something scary about starting a business for me would be not having the same benefits from being under a company. Any insight on how you set that up yourself? This is an amazing question, and I'm actually still figuring this out. So I'm currently 25 years old. I will be 26 next year and will be off of my parents' insurance. So at the moment, I'm still on my parents' insurance, and my husband is a real estate agent. We're both 25. Next year is everything is on our own. So we're in the process of figuring that out. I'll have to keep you guys updated on what we end up doing with insurance, because I honestly really don't know. But we have until October this year when my husband turns 26 to figure that out. So I'll keep you posted, Catherine, and everyone who's interested in that. Okay, Dahlia, this is going to be my last question. I feel like I'm going really long, even though there's still 26 of you. So if you guys have any last minute questions you want to throw in here, go ahead and toss them in. Dahlia says, I just signed up for the Balance Bites Masterclass just to make sure I really want to study this type of material. Should I be concerned about waiting until later in the summer to register in the fall? Do the online only programs fill up? So I would say whenever you're feeling ready to start the program, bite the bullet. If you're feeling, deep within yourself, like, I think this is what I want, I think this is the program that I'm going to do, just do it. I can tell you, in life, in business, in anything, it's better to just act and do things before you just sit there and talk yourself out of doing it before you ever try it. So if you're really interested, you've thought about this program for a while, you're clearly very engaged in this live and you're really interested, so feel free to reach out to me, feel free to reach out to the NTA, get your questions answered, and I would say just jump in with both feet. The Balance Bites Masters class, I don't know too much about it. I do know that it's kind of similar to some of the principles that you learn as an NTP, but it's probably not going to go nearly as in depth as the NTP program will. So if you're like trying to just dip a toe in, I would say just jump into the pool, why not? That's just my personality, but that would be my suggestion. I think there's a lot of people that they get worried, they get in their own heads, they end up talking themselves out of things, and then it just doesn't happen. And then you're like, oh, well, why did these things happen? And why am I waiting for things? It's best to not wait around and just make them happen. If you want that to happen, just make it happen. That would be my suggestion. But that's just also my personality, because I just like to get after things. But to wrap up this a little bit, I think one of the most common questions that I get is some of the things that we went over today. How do I start my business? Specifically from clients, I always have digestive questions. We are always talking about digestion and adrenal dysfunction. I will tell you guys, as you learn through the NTP program, you become an NTP, the foundations are legit. I remember going through the program thinking, oh my gosh, if I hear one more thing about how important the foundations are, I'm gonna go crazy. But when you start working with clients, you need to focus on the foundations, because that's where you're gonna start. It is the root cause for everything that you're gonna see, no matter how simple or complicated your clients are. And it's just a great guide, and the body is so smart and knows exactly what it needs. So focusing on those foundations are huge. So don't make fun of them like I did. I was like, it felt like college. I was like, gosh, okay, we get it, the foundations. But they're so important, so important. And in terms of, let's see, what other things did I want to talk about? I have all these random notes over here. Projects that I'm currently working on. That's an interesting one. So this weekend, I'm actually doing a talk at Natural Grocers in Denver. I'm talking all about gut health. And we got the event sponsored by Natural Grocers. There's over, I think 75 to 100 people that are coming. This is the biggest speaking engagement that I've ever had. So I'm definitely nervous, but very excited to share the information with all of these people. I know there's some new NTPs here in Denver that are going to be at that event. So I'm super excited to meet you guys. Feel free to come up, introduce yourself, ask me questions. But that's an event that I have coming up. And gosh, I don't even know. I feel like my brain's always at just 1,000 miles an hour looking at all these different things that I could do with my business. So that's the tangible thing that's happening right now. The podcast is brand new, like you guys mentioned. And yeah, everything's going well. I'm going to start the restorative wellness program probably here in September, the next enrollment, so I can learn how to do some functional labs, which is something that's available to you guys after the NTP program. You can do that if you want to dig deeper with your clients and start to be able to offer labs to your clients remotely or in person in your own clinic. So that's something that I'm planning on doing moving forward. Super excited about that. And I think those are all of the big things at this point. But if you guys have any questions about the nutrition program, the nutritional therapy program, or the NTC program at all, you can reach out to nta@nutritionaltherapy.com. And you can also reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. So my email is Kate, it's CAIT, .eberly, EBERLY, it's my maiden name, @gmail.com. So you can catch me there. You can send me a DM on Instagram. My name on Instagram is just and then WhatKate8. It's all one word. It's WHATCAITATE. And I think someone already offered up the link to my website here. So if you guys scroll through the comments on here, you'll find my website, but it's just WhatKate8.com. But thank you guys so much for having me on here. I hope this was helpful. Sometimes when I do these, I feel like I'm just rambling a lot. So I hope I answered all of your questions well. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And I'll see you guys on Instagram and in person. If you're here in Denver, I would love to grab coffee with you guys and meet you in person. So reach out. But thank you guys so much, and thank you Nutritional Therapy Association for having me, and I'll talk to you guys soon.